The old man's fingers traced the worn metal surface of the communication console as another alien transmission filled the underground chamber. Dr. Emma Rodriguez had been listening to these signals for 37 years, ever since the day humanity first learned they were not alone in the universe. The voices speaking through the static belonged to the Galactic Collective, a massive empire of 12 different alien species that had ruled space for thousands of years. Nobody on Earth was supposed to understand these transmissions. The aliens believed humans were too primitive to decode their language, too weak to pose any threat, and too stupid to learn their secrets. They were wrong on all three counts. Emma adjusted her headphones and smiled as she heard Admiral Krell's voice discussing patrol routes near human colonies. The reptilian commander thought he was speaking in perfect security, but every word was being recorded and analyzed by the most advanced computers humanity had ever built. These machines were hidden deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, powered by fusion reactors that officially did not exist. The year was 2087. Exactly 1 century since Ambassador David Wong had walked into the Collective's council chambers on Nexus Station and been laughed at by creatures who saw humans as barely intelligent animals. That meeting had been carefully orchestrated. Wong had played his role perfectly, appearing desperate and primitive while the real power of Earth remained hidden. Emma stood up from her station and walked through the massive underground facility that stretched for miles beneath the mountain. Thousands of scientists and engineers worked here in absolute secrecy, developing technologies that would have amazed the aliens who thought they were so superior. She passed laboratories where teams were perfecting adaptive armor that could change its properties in milliseconds, workshops where new weapons were being crafted from reverse-engineered alien components, and training rooms where soldiers practiced combat techniques in zero-gravity. General Thomas Blake met her at the Central Command Center, his weathered face showing the strain of maintaining humanity's greatest deception. For 50 years, he had been building an army while making sure the aliens never suspected what was happening. Human colonies appeared to struggle with basic problems while secretly becoming fortress worlds. Human ships looked like they were held together with scrap metal while hiding weapon systems that could level cities. "The latest intelligence reports are ready," Blake said, handing Emma a datapad. "Our agents on Mars base have confirmed the Collective considers us a Category 7 species. They still think we can barely build a proper spaceship." Emma laughed quietly as she read the report. Category 7 was the lowest rating in the Collective's classification system, reserved for species they considered useful only for manual labor. Humans were seen as strong enough to work in mines and farms, but too primitive to ever threaten the established order of the galaxy. If only they knew the truth. Hidden across the solar system, humanity had built a network of secret installations that would have impressed even the most advanced alien civilizations. The moon's surface concealed weapon platforms powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. Mars appeared to be a struggling mining colony but was actually the largest shipyard in human space. Even the asteroid belt had been transformed into a defensive network, with hidden engines attached to carefully selected rocks that could be turned into devastating kinetic weapons. The deception had required incredible sacrifice from everyone involved. Millions of humans had lived their entire lives maintaining the illusion of weakness. Diplomats had endured decades of insults and condescension from alien officials who treated them like children. Colonists had pretended to struggle with problems they had solved years ago. Soldiers had trained in secret while publicly appearing as poorly equipped militia forces. Emma walked to the main viewing screen, which displayed a real-time map of human space. Red dots marked the locations of alien patrol ships, most of them commanded by officers who believed they were watching over primitive settlements. Green dots showed the true positions of human military assets, a network of power that spanned the entire solar system and beyond. The Prometheus project had been her life's work, starting with fragments of alien technology recovered from early contact missions. She had led teams of brilliant scientists in understanding and improving upon designs that were supposedly beyond human comprehension. They had not simply copied alien science but had found ways to make it better, combining it with uniquely human approaches to problem solving. "The neural interface tests are complete," reported Dr. Paul Kim, approaching with a tablet full of data. "Human pilots using the MindBridge system can process information and react to threats faster than any known alien species. Their command decisions are being made at superhuman speeds." Emma nodded with satisfaction. The MindBridge technology was perhaps their greatest achievement, allowing human consciousness to merge temporarily with advanced computer systems. Pilots using this technology could think and react in microseconds, making them nearly impossible to defeat in combat. The aliens had nothing comparable because they relied on separate organic and mechanical systems rather than true integration. General Blake received an urgent communication and his expression grew serious as he listened. "Long-range sensors are detecting unusual collective fleet movements," he announced. Something has changed in their patrol patterns. Emma felt a chill of anticipation. For 100 years, humanity had been preparing for the day when their deception would be discovered and they would have to reveal their true capabilities. Every simulation, every training exercise, every technological breakthrough had been designed for the moment when the mask would finally come off. The underground facility's emergency lighting, activated as alerts, began flashing across multiple screens. Deep space monitoring stations were reporting massive alien fleet movements toward human space. After a century of careful planning and patient preparation, it appeared that humanity's time of hiding was about to end. Emma Rodriguez looked around at the thousands of people who had dedicated their lives to this moment. They had turned humanity's apparent weakness into its greatest strength, using the aliens' arrogance and assumptions against them. Now they would learn what humans were truly capable of when they stopped pretending to be primitive and revealed the fire that had been burning in secret for 100 years. The galaxy was about to discover that underestimating humanity had been the collective's greatest mistake. The mining station on Titan had been operating quietly for 15 years, appearing to struggle with basic ore extraction while secretly housing one of humanity's most advanced defensive installations. Workers moved slowly across the surface, in environmental suits that looked outdated and clumsy, but beneath their feet lay weapon systems that could challenge an entire alien battle fleet. Admiral Krell of the Saurid species had grown tired of watching humans pretend to be useful. His reptilian features twisted with disgust as he reviewed reports of human colonies that seemed to barely function despite decades of collective oversight. Today he would make an example that would remind these primitive creatures of their proper place in the galactic order. The Fourth Fleet approached Titan with the casual confidence of predators hunting defenseless prey. 12 massive warships surrounded the small human outpost, their weapon systems charging with enough power to glass the entire moon's surface. Krell opened a communication channel to the mining station, expecting the usual human response of fear and desperate pleading. Instead, he heard the calm voice of Director Michelle Foster. "Admiral Krell, you are entering restricted human space without authorization. Please state your intentions." The reptilian commander laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his ship's bridge. "Restricted space? You misunderstand your position, human. This system belongs to the collective, and you exist here only by our permission. Today that permission is withdrawn." What happened next would be replayed in alien military academies for generations as an example of what overconfidence could cost. The supposedly primitive mining station suddenly came alive with activity as hidden panels slid open across its surface. Weapon emplacements emerged from concealed positions. While energy shields flickered to life around critical installations, the human vessel Defiance rose from what had appeared to be a simple landing pad. Captain Alex Rivera's ship looked like it had been assembled from salvaged parts in desperation. But as Krell's sensors tried to lock onto it, the readings became confused and contradictory. The ship seemed to phase in and out of existence, its outline shifting as adaptive camouflage technology made it nearly impossible to target. "This is impossible," growled Krell's tactical officer. "The humans don't have this kind of technology. Our intelligence reports clearly state they are Category 7 primitives." Captain Rivera's voice cut through the alien communication channels with crystalline clarity. Admiral Krell, you have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet from this system. We do not wish to harm anyone, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Krell's response was to order an immediate attack on both the mining station and the human ship. He had commanded fleets in dozens of battles across the galaxy and had never been seriously challenged by any species rated below Category 4. These humans would learn their lesson quickly and permanently. The first salvo of alien plasma bolts struck the Defiance directly, but instead of the expected explosion, the energy seemed to be absorbed and redirected. The human ship's hull rippled, like liquid metal, adapting to the incoming fire and becoming more resistant with each hit. When Rivera finally returned fire, his weapons seemed to learn from each shot. Adjusting their frequency and intensity to better penetrate alien shields, 3 collective warships exploded in rapid succession, their advanced armor proving useless against weapons that evolved with each firing cycle. The remaining ships found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move, countering tactics that had proven successful against dozens of other species on Titan's surface. The mining station revealed its true nature as defensive positions that had been disguised as industrial equipment opened fire on the alien fleet. Particle beam arrays that had masqueraded as ore processors carved through enemy shields like they were made of paper. Missile batteries hidden beneath what appeared to be storage tanks launched projectiles that tracked their targets with impossible accuracy. Admiral Krell watched in horror as his overwhelming force was systematically destroyed by opponents he had considered barely sentient. A human ship moved through space like it was dancing, avoiding attacks while delivering devastating counterstrikes that seemed to target the exact weak points in alien ship designs. "How are they doing this?" demanded his communications officer, a crystalline being whose voice carried harmonics of pure panic. "They're using our own weapons against us, but better than we ever could." The answer came from Captain Rivera himself, as his ship positioned itself directly in front of Krell's flagship. "We've been watching you for a long time, Admiral. Every battle you fought, every tactic you've used, every weakness in your technology, we learned from all of it." The Defiance fired a single shot that punched through the flagship's primary shields and disabled its main engines without causing casualties. The message was clear. The humans could have destroyed them all but chose restraint instead. This display of mercy was somehow more terrifying than any act of violence could have been. "Withdraw your remaining ships and carry this message back to the collective," Rivera continued. "Humanity is no longer the primitive species you believe us to be. We have been preparing for this day for 100 years. If you leave us in peace, we will leave you in peace. If you choose war, you will discover exactly how much we have learned." Admiral Krell's pride demanded that he continue fighting, but his survival instincts overruled his arrogance. The 3 surviving ships of his once mighty fleet limped away from Titan, carrying news that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Collective on Earth. The emergency session of the Hidden Council faced the reality that their century-long deception was over. General Blake stood before the assembled leaders of humanity's secret government, knowing that the next decisions would determine whether his species would finally claim its place among the stars or face extinction at the hands of a terrified enemy. "The collective now knows we're not what we appeared to be," he said grimly. "Our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout their space. They're mobilizing everything they have." Dr. Rodriguez activated the holographic display that showed the full scope of human defensive preparations. "Project Lazarus is ready for activation. We can transform our entire sphere of influence into a fortress that would challenge even their full military might." The vote was unanimous. After a century of hiding their true nature, humanity would finally show the galaxy what they had become. The message was sent to every human installation from Mercury to the outer colonies: prepare for total war, and let the aliens learn why underestimating human ingenuity had been their greatest mistake. Deep space sensors detected the approaching storm 3 days before it arrived at the edge of the solar system. The collective Seventh Fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, containing over 300 warships from 8 different alien species. Every vessel bristled with weapons designed to reduce planets to cosmic dust, and their combined firepower could have sterilized a dozen worlds in a matter of hours. Commander Roy Park sat in the newly revealed Earth Defense Command Center, watching the enemy fleet's approach on screens that had been hidden beneath the surface of what tourists believed was a simple communications facility. Around him, officers who had spent decades pretending to be civilian researchers now wore the uniforms of humanity's true military, their faces calm despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "Fleet composition analysis is complete," reported Lieutenant Sarah Chun from her sensor station. "We're looking at 5 Sword heavy cruisers, 37 insectoid swarm fighters, 42 crystalline energy platforms, and over 200 support vessels. They're not taking any chances this time." Park nodded grimly as he studied the tactical display. Admiral Krell had convinced the collective high command that humanity posed an existential threat, and they had responded by sending enough firepower to destroy everything humans had ever built. What they didn't know was that humans had been preparing for exactly this scenario for over a century. "Begin Phase 1 of the Awakening Protocol," Park ordered, across the solar system. Installations that had masqueraded as civilian infrastructure for generations began their transformation. Earth's moon, which had appeared to host only research stations and mining operations, suddenly came alive with hidden machinery. Massive sections of the lunar surface slid away to reveal weapon platforms that dwarfed anything in the approaching alien fleet. Mars base had been carefully constructed to look like a struggling colonial outpost where humans barely managed to extract enough resources to survive. The deception had been maintained so perfectly that collective observers often used it as an example of human incompetence. Now the entire surface of the red planet reconfigured itself as hidden manufacturing plants emerged from underground complexes and shipyards, revealed themselves in carefully concealed craters. The asteroid belt had been humanity's greatest achievement in strategic deception. For decades, alien patrols had watched human mining ships slowly working their way through the scattered rocks, appearing to barely manage basic resource extraction. In reality, every major asteroid had been fitted with powerful engines and guidance systems, turning the entire belt into a weapon system of unprecedented scale. As the collective fleet entered the outer edge of the solar system, they expected to find a handful of poorly armed human ships and some basic orbital defenses around Earth. Instead, they encountered something that defied every assumption they had made about human capabilities. The first surprise came from the asteroid belt itself. Rocks that had been drifting peacefully in their orbits for decades suddenly ignited hidden engines and began accelerating toward the alien fleet. Each asteroid had been carefully positioned years in advance, and now they moved with the precision of guided missiles, their massive bulk turning them into kinetic weapons that no shield could fully deflect. Admiral Krell's communications officer, the same crystalline being who had survived the disaster at Titan, watched in disbelief as his sensors registered the incoming projectiles. "The asteroids are moving under their own power," he reported, his voice carrying harmonics of pure terror. "They're not random debris. The humans have turned the entire belt into a weapon system." The second surprise came from ships that emerged from concealment throughout the system. The human fleet that rose to meet the collective invasion looked nothing like the crude vessels that alien intelligence had cataloged over the years. These ships moved with fluid grace, their hulls shifting and adapting as advanced materials responded to changing conditions. Their weapon systems fired energy beams that seemed to learn and evolve with each shot, becoming more effective against alien defenses with every exchange. Captain Lisa Chang commanded the human vessel Phoenix, one of dozens of ships that had been hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moons for over a decade. Her ship demonstrated the true evolution of human technology as it engaged a formation of insectoid swarm fighters. The Phoenix didn't simply outfight its opponents. It outsmarted them, using predictive algorithms to anticipate their movements and adaptive weapons to counter their defenses. "The enemy is attempting to use swarm tactics," reported her tactical officer. "Their fighters are coordinating attacks from 17 different vectors simultaneously." "Let them come," Chang replied. Calmly, "Phoenix, analyze their attack patterns and prepare countermeasures." The ship's artificial intelligence, a fusion of human creativity and alien technology that neither species could have achieved alone, processed the incoming data in microseconds. When the swarm fighters attacked, they found their targets had vanished, replaced by holographic projections, while the real human ships struck from unexpected angles. The third surprise was the defense of Earth itself. The homeworld that the collective expected to find poorly defended revealed weapon systems that turned the planet into an impregnable fortress. Orbital platforms that had masqueraded as space elevators and communication satellites unfolded into massive particle beam arrays. The planet's magnetic field itself became a weapon as human scientists demonstrated their mastery over forces that even advanced alien civilizations struggled to understand. Major Tom Wilson led the ground-based defenses from a command center buried deep beneath the Sahara Desert. His forces wore armor that adapted to enemy fire in real time, becoming more resistant with each attack. Their weapon systems learned from every engagement, evolving to counter new threats as they emerged. "Enemy landing craft are attempting to breach our atmosphere," reported Wilson's communications officer. "They're targeting population centers across 6 continents." "Activate the atmospheric defense grid," Wilson responded. "Let them see what happens when they try to attack our home." The landing craft that entered Earth's atmosphere found themselves flying through an environment that had been transformed into a defensive maze. The air itself seemed to turn against them as human weather control systems generated electromagnetic storms that disrupted alien navigation and weapon systems. What should have been a simple planetary assault became a nightmare of confusion and mechanical failure. As the battle raged across the solar system, the true scope of human evolution became clear. They had not simply copied alien technology, but had improved upon it, finding solutions that their opponents had never imagined. Every human ship fought with the combined knowledge of 100 years of careful observation and analysis, turning the aliens' own strengths against them. Admiral Krell watched his mighty fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move, counter every tactic, and turn every advantage into a liability. The humans didn't just fight back. They demonstrated a level of strategic thinking and technological innovation that suggested they had surpassed their would-be conquerors in every meaningful way. The final insult came when the human fleet offered surrender terms to the surviving alien ships. After being decimated by forces they had considered primitive, the remnants of the Seventh Fleet were given the chance to withdraw with their lives intact, carrying the message back to the collective that humanity would no longer hide its true nature from the galaxy. The emergency session on Nexus Station had been called within hours of receiving the first desperate transmissions from the survivors of the Seventh Fleet. Chancellor Vorth of the Hive Mind species paced nervously around the circular chamber, while her insectoid features twitched with barely controlled anxiety. Around the massive table sat representatives of the 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and for the first time in their collective history they were afraid. "The reports must be exaggerated," declared War Speaker Garn, his crystalline body resonating with harmonics of denial. "No Category 7 species could possess technology superior to our own. It is mathematically impossible based on every model we have developed over thousands of years." Admiral Krell's holographic image flickered in the center of the chamber, the reptilian commander's scales still bearing scorch marks from his narrow escape from human space. His voice carried the weight of absolute certainty as he described the destruction of 2 complete battle fleets by forces that should not have existed. "I watched ships that could phase in and out of reality," Krell said, his words causing uncomfortable shifting among the assembled representatives. "I saw weapons that learned from each shot, becoming more effective against our defenses with every exchange. The humans didn't just defeat us. They demonstrated technologies that we cannot explain or counter. The debate that followed revealed the depth of the collective's miscalculation. For a century, they had based their entire understanding of humanity on carefully orchestrated deceptions. Every diplomatic contact, every intelligence report, every assessment of human capabilities had been manipulated by minds far more cunning than the aliens had imagined possible. Supreme Commander Thomas Blake stood in the war room beneath the Colorado Mountains, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. The elderly general had spent 50 years preparing for this moment, and now he was ready to demonstrate what humanity could accomplish when they stopped pretending to be weak. Operation Prometheus is authorized, Blake announced to his assembled staff. All human forces are cleared to reveal their true capabilities and engage collective targets throughout the galaxy. The campaign that followed redefined the concept of warfare for every species in the known universe. Human forces didn't simply attack military targets. They systematically dismantled the technological and logistical foundations that supported collective power. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously struck at defended positions that were supposedly impregnable. Ground forces, equipped with adaptive armor and learning weapons, carved through alien defenses that had never been breached. Captain Lisa Chang led the assault on the fortress world of Ironhold, a planet that housed the collective's primary weapons manufacturing facilities. Her ship Phoenix had been joined by a full squadron of vessels that demonstrated the true evolution of human space combat doctrine. They didn't rely on overwhelming firepower or numerical superiority. Instead, they used intelligence, adaptability, and technological innovation to turn every enemy strength into a weakness. Ironhold's defenses are formidable, reported her tactical officer as they approached the heavily fortified world. Orbital platforms, energy shields, and automated defense systems that have never been defeated in 3,000 years of warfare. Then, it's time for them to learn what defeat looks like, Chang replied calmly. Phoenix, begin phase shift sequence. The human ship seemed to shimmer and fade as its experimental drive system activated, allowing it to become temporarily intangible, while maintaining full offensive capability. The fortress world's weapons fired uselessly through the ghostly vessel while Chang's team analyzed the defensive systems with sensors that could penetrate any known form of shielding. Major Tom Wilson coordinated the ground assault from his command ship as human forces prepared to land on a world that had never been successfully invaded. His soldiers wore armor that had learned from every previous engagement, incorporating improvements that made them more effective against each known form of alien technology. Remember, we're not here to destroy, Wilson announced to his troops. We're here to demonstrate. Let them see what humans are capable of when we stop hiding our abilities. The landing was unlike anything in military history. Human soldiers didn't storm beaches or drop from orbit like traditional invasion forces. Instead, they used teleportation technology to appear directly inside enemy fortifications, bypassing defenses entirely. Their weapon systems analyzed alien armor and energy shields in real time, automatically adjusting to penetrate whatever protection they encountered. The most disturbing aspect of the human assault was not their technological superiority, but their approach to warfare itself. Where other species saw conflict as a matter of destroying the enemy, humans treated each battle as a learning experience. Every engagement provided data that improved their tactics, weapons, and defenses for the next encounter. Dr. Paul Kim's Mindbridge technology had been deployed to human commanders throughout the galaxy, allowing them to think and process information at superhuman speeds. Officers using this system could coordinate complex operations across multiple star systems while simultaneously adapting to changing battlefield conditions in real time. The neural interface is functioning perfectly, Kim reported from his laboratory. On Mars, human commanders are now capable of processing tactical information faster than any known alien species. They can anticipate enemy movements and counter them before the aliens have even finished planning their attacks. The results were visible across the galaxy as collective forces found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Fleets that should have been impossible to defeat were destroyed by smaller, human forces using tactics that seemed to violate the basic principles of space combat. Fortress worlds that had never fallen were captured by ground troops who appeared to understand alien technology better than its creators on Nexus Station. The collective high command watched their empire crumble as reports of defeat poured in from every sector. The species that had considered themselves the masters of creation were being systematically outfought by beings they had dismissed as barely intelligent animals. "How is this possible?" demanded Chancellor Vorth, her compound, eyes reflecting the tactical displays that showed human forces advancing on multiple fronts. "Our intelligence services spent decades studying these creatures. Every report confirmed they were primitive and harmless." The answer came from an unexpected source. A human transmission appeared on their communication screens, carrying the image of Dr. Emma Rodriguez. The elderly scientist who had spent her life listening to alien secrets now addressed the beings who had unknowingly taught her everything she needed to know. "For 100 years we listened to every word you spoke," Rodriguez said calmly. "Every military frequency, every scientific breakthrough, every technological advancement. You shared your knowledge freely because you believed we were too primitive to understand it. You were wrong." The revelation that humanity had been intercepting and analyzing collective communications for an entire century sent shockwaves through the assembly. Every classified military discussion, every secret scientific project, every strategic plan had been monitored and studied by minds that had used the information to surpass their teachers. "We learned from you," Rodriguez continued, "but we didn't stop there. We improved upon your designs, solved problems you didn't know existed, and developed capabilities you never imagined possible. The galaxy is about to discover what happens when a species dedicated to learning encounters one that believed it had nothing left to learn." The ancient space station that had served as the center of galactic civilization for over 5,000 years had never faced a serious military threat. Nexus Station was more than just the capital of the collective. It was a symbol of alien superiority, a massive structure that housed billions of beings and commanded fleets spanning hundreds of star systems. Its defenses had been built by the greatest military minds of 12 different species, incorporating technology that was considered absolutely impregnable. Admiral Rebecca Stone approached the station aboard the human flagship Prometheus, leading a fleet that represented everything humanity had learned during their century of secret preparation. Her ships moved through space with an elegance that defied traditional physics, their hulls shifting and adapting as they encountered the station's defensive measures. The vessels seemed to dance between dimensions, existing in multiple realities simultaneously while maintaining perfect formation. "All ships report ready for final engagement," announced her communications officer, Lieutenant Dave Miller. "The enemy is deploying every defensive system they possess, but our sensors are reading their capabilities in real time." Stone nodded, as she studied the tactical display that showed Nexus Station's formidable defenses. Energy shields that could deflect the combined firepower of 100 warships surrounded the massive structure. Automated weapon platforms emerged from hidden positions, their targeting systems designed to track and destroy any approaching threat. Fighter squadrons launched from docking bays that had never been breached in millennia of warfare. "They still don't understand what they're facing," Stone observed calmly. "Begin the demonstration." The human fleet's approach to the battle revealed the fundamental difference between their military philosophy and that of every other species in the galaxy. Where aliens saw warfare as a matter of applying superior force to overwhelm enemy defenses, humans treated each engagement as an intellectual puzzle to be solved through analysis and innovation. The Prometheus fired a single shot that should have been absorbed harmlessly by the station's primary shields. Instead, the energy beam seemed to resonate with the defensive barrier, creating a cascading failure that revealed the exact frequency needed to penetrate the protection. Within seconds, every human ship had adjusted its weapons to match this. frequency, turning the station's greatest strength into a vulnerability. Impossible, gasped Chancellor Vorth from the station's command center. Those shields were designed by our greatest scientist. No known weapon should be able to penetrate them so easily. The answer came from the Prometheus itself as Admiral. Stone opened a communication channel to the alien command structure. Your shields were indeed well designed, she said respectfully, but you built them to defend against known threats. We represent something new. The human ships demonstrated their true capabilities as they engaged the station's defensive platforms. Weapons that had been created to destroy entire fleets found themselves firing at targets that seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The human vessels phased in and out of normal space, appearing long enough to deliver devastating attacks, before vanishing into dimensions that alien science had only theorized about. Captain Lisa Chang commanded a squadron of ships that had been tasked with neutralizing the station's fighter defenses. Her vessels Phoenix and her sister ships moved through the alien formations like ghosts, their adaptive camouflage making them nearly impossible to target while their weapon systems learned from each engagement. Enemy fighters are attempting coordinated attack patterns, reported her tactical officer. They're using swarm tactics with over 300 individual units. Let them come, Chang replied. Our ships have analyzed their combat doctrine from a century of observation. We know their strategies better than they do. The dogfight that followed would be studied by military historians for generations as an example of perfect tactical execution. The human ships didn't simply outfight their opponents. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and turned the aliens' own coordination against them. Fighter squadrons that had never known defeat found themselves outmaneuvered by opponents who seemed to read their thoughts. On the station's surface, human ground forces had begun materializing through teleportation technology that bypassed every known form of defense. Major Tom Wilson led troops equipped with armor that adapted to enemy fire in real time, making them more resistant to alien weapons with each attack they survived. The station's internal defenses are formidable, Wilson reported as his forces advanced through corridors that had been designed to repel any conceivable invasion. Automated turrets, energy barriers, and security systems that respond to intruders instantly. Then we'll show them why adapting faster than your enemy is the ultimate advantage, replied his tactical coordinator. The human soldiers moved through the station like they had been born in its corridors, their adaptive technology allowing them to counter each defensive measure they encountered. Weapons that learned from every shot became more effective against alien armor with each pull of the trigger. Armor that evolved in response to enemy fire made the soldiers nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. The most remarkable aspect of the human assault was not their technological superiority, but their restraint. Despite possessing weapons that could have reduced the entire station to debris in minutes, they carefully targeted only military systems while avoiding casualties among the civilian population. This display of precision and mercy was somehow more terrifying to the aliens than any act of destruction could have been. Dr. Paul Kim's Mindbridge technology had reached its full potential in the human commanders leading the assault. Officers using the neural interface system could process information and make decisions at superhuman speeds, coordinating complex operations across multiple fronts while adapting to changing conditions in real time. Neural synchronization is at maximum efficiency, Kim reported from his command ship. Human commanders are now thinking and reacting faster than any alien species can comprehend. They're not just winning battles, they're redefining what warfare means. The final phase of the battle demonstrated humanity's complete mastery over the forces that governed space combat. The Prometheus positioned itself directly in front of Nexus Station's main command center and fired a weapon that rewrote the fundamental forces of physics in a localized area. The station's defenses didn't just fail, they ceased to function according to the basic laws that governed their operation. Surrender, Admiral Stone announced, her voice carrying across every communication channel in the system. You have fought bravely. But you cannot win against an enemy that understands your technology better than you do and has improved upon it in ways you never imagined possible. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes as the collective leadership struggled to accept a reality that contradicted everything they had believed about their place in the universe. They had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. For thousands of years, and in a matter of hours, they had been outfought by a species they had considered barely sentient. Chancellor Vorth's voice finally broke the silence, carrying harmonics of defeat and confusion. "What do you want from us?" The response that came from Admiral Stone changed the course of galactic history. Instead of demanding tribute, territory, or submission, she made an offer that no conquering species had ever made before. "We want to build something better," Stone said simply. "The rigid caste systems that divided your species, the hoarding of technology that maintained inequality, the belief that some civilizations are inherently superior to others, all of that ends today. The Terran Accords that were signed in the ruins of the collective's military power established a new order for the galaxy. Humanity didn't seek to replace their former oppressors, but to create a system where every species could contribute its unique strengths to the common good. The concept of Category 7 civilizations was abolished, along with every other classification that had been used to justify domination and exploitation. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, now ancient but still brilliant, delivered the closing words at the first session of the new Galactic Assembly. Representatives from dozens of species listened as the woman who had spent her life learning alien secrets explained what humanity had really accomplished. "You thought we were primitive because we approached problems differently," she said, her voice carrying the weight of a century of patient preparation. "You believed we were weak because we chose cooperation over domination. You assumed we were broken because we valued learning more than conquering." The assembled representatives listened in absolute silence as the elderly human continued her address. Species that had warred against each other for millennia sat side by side, united by their shared experience of discovering how wrong they had been about the small blue world that had seemed so insignificant. "The fire you witnessed was not born from hatred or a desire for revenge," Rodriguez explained. "It came from something far more dangerous to those who refused to change. It came from curiosity, from the relentless human drive to understand, improve, and grow beyond what anyone thought possible." She gestured to the massive viewing screen that showed Earth in the distance, the small planet that had somehow produced a species capable of reshaping galactic civilization. "For 100 years we watched and learned. Every transmission you sent, every technology you developed, every mistake you made became part of our education. We didn't just copy your achievements. We understood them so completely that we could improve upon them." The transformation of galactic society that followed the Terran Accords was more profound than any military conquest could have achieved. The rigid hierarchies that had kept species separated for thousands of years crumbled as human administrators demonstrated that cooperation produced better results than competition. Technologies that had been hoarded by elite civilizations were shared freely, leading to innovations that benefited everyone. General Blake, now promoted to Supreme Military Coordinator of the Allied Forces, oversaw the integration of human and alien military doctrines. The result was a defensive alliance that could protect member worlds from any conceivable threat while maintaining the peace, through strength rather than fear. "The old way of thinking about warfare is finished," Blake announced to a gathering of military leaders from across the galaxy. "We've proven that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest weapons, but the one who can adapt faster than you can respond. From now on, our focus will be on learning and evolution rather than simple destruction." The economic systems that had maintained inequality throughout the galaxy were replaced with models based on human concepts of mutual benefit and shared prosperity. Worlds that had struggled under the burden of tribute payments to their supposed superiors found themselves partners in enterprises that elevated everyone involved. Dr. Kim's Mindbridge technology was adapted for peaceful purposes, allowing beings from different species to share thoughts and experiences directly. The barriers of language and culture that had separated civilizations for millennia began to dissolve as true understanding became possible for the first time. We're not just changing how the galaxy works, Kim explained to a group of alien scientists who were learning to use human neural interface systems. We're changing how its inhabitants think about themselves and each other. When you can literally see through someone else's eyes, it becomes impossible to consider them inferior or alien. The most profound change came in the field of scientific research, or the combination of human adaptability with alien knowledge, produced breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. Problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries were solved in months as human creativity merged with alien expertise. Captain Chang, now promoted to Admiral of the Exploration Fleet, led missions to previously unknown regions of space using ships that represented the pinnacle of cooperative engineering. Human adaptive technology combined with alien manufacturing techniques and crystalline computational systems created vessels that could survive in environments that would have destroyed any previous generation of spacecraft. Every new world we discover teaches us something about the universe that we never knew before, Chang reported during a conference of exploration leaders. The galaxy is far stranger and more wonderful than any single species could have imagined. By working together, we're uncovering secrets that have been hidden for billions of years. The cultural renaissance that followed the establishment of the new galactic order produced art, literature, and music that incorporated elements from dozens of different civilizations. Human creativity inspired alien artists to explore new forms of expression, while alien techniques allowed human creators to work with materials and concepts they had never encountered before. Years passed, and the galaxy that emerged from humanity's patient revolution bore little resemblance to the rigid empire that had existed before. Worlds that had been classified as primitive or inferior became centers of innovation and learning. Species that had been considered enemies discovered common ground in their shared pursuit of knowledge and growth. The memorial that was erected at the site of the first battle at Titan bore inscriptions in every known language, honoring both the human defenders who had revealed their true nature and the alien attackers, who had unknowingly forced that revelation. It served as a reminder that even the most devastating conflicts could lead to understanding and cooperation if both sides were willing to learn from their mistakes. Dr. Rodriguez lived to see the transformation she had helped create reach its full flowering. On her deathbed, surrounded by colleagues from a dozen different species, she offered her final thoughts on what humanity had accomplished. "We never sought to conquer the galaxy," she whispered, her voice still carrying the strength that had sustained her through decades of secret preparation. "We only wanted the chance to show what we could become. The fire that burned in human hearts was never meant to destroy. It was meant to illuminate the darkness and show everyone the path to something better." The legacy of humanity's rise from apparent weakness to galactic leadership became a fundamental part of the new civilization's founding mythology. Children from every species learned the story of how the humans had turned a century of deception into the foundation for a better universe, proving that the greatest strength came not from weapons or technology, but from the willingness to grow beyond what others believed possible. The galaxy had learned that underestimating the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who listened and learned instead of shouting and conquering, was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. And in the stars that shone above, countless worlds where former enemies now worked as partners. The fire that had once burned in secret continued to light the way toward a future that none of them could have achieved alone.